From Dallas to D.C., the Commanders are hiring defensive coordinator Dan Quinn as their head coach, per league sources. Adam Schefter just tweeting this out here. Quinn and Commanders GM Adam Peters are the two men now charged with leading Washington into the future. All right, Stephen A., I'll start with you. Do you like Dan Quinn as the hire as head coach of the Commanders?
No.
Ooh.
I do not. I'm not questioning his football qualifications as a head coach in Atlanta. He was decent, got him to the Super Bowl, lost a 28-3 lead with Kyle Shanahan as his offensive coordinator. The last time we saw him was in a playoff game where the Dallas Cowboys defense looked horrific. That was our last vision of him. Now, obviously, he's improved the defense by leaps and bounds over the years with the Dallas Cowboys. He had the personnel in place. But in moments where it really, really counted, they came up short. To me, if you're a division rival within the NFC East, and that's the backdrop for it, for that to be your hire, I mean, it's not a mean to imply that. But I would have much rather preferred Dan Quinn remaining as the defensive coordinator in Dallas and going back to try and make amends for the horrific performance that they had put forth in the NFC wildcard playoff game against the Green Bay Packers. That's what I would have preferred personally. That's not what happened. Again, I'm not saying that the man can't coach. I'm not saying that the man doesn't deserve a job. I'm not even saying he doesn't deserve to be a head coach. But an NFC East rival, coming off what I saw them
cycle and interviewing with teams often get calls from other people. But this exceeded the regular number of calls that a team ordinarily gets. And the Commanders remembered that as they were going through their process. Now, there were other candidates that they were considering. Mike McDonald wound up going to Seattle. Ben Johnson decided to remain in Detroit. But all along, they truly liked and really were drawn to the idea of Dan Quinn with prior head coaching experience, with all the support he had across the league, coming from D.C., leaving Dallas, staying in the division, and leading this franchise forward.
And Swagoo, what do you think about the Commanders bringing him in?
I like the hire. That's number one. Obviously, it's a part of what Dan Quinn was able to do in Dallas. I think he was a little restricted by the personnel in Dallas, which we saw sometimes struggle. We talked about the linebacker position at all times. I think Washington, though, with this new ownership, and when you think about Dan Quinn, it's been a lot of success, but you also need a leader of men. Like that organization kind of has been in flux since the Daniel Snyder selling the team and all of the things that surrounded that. It always felt like Ron Rivera was kind of a middleman between that era and the era that they would try to usher in. And from a defensive standpoint, when it comes to Dan Quinn, we know his philosophy works. And the reason why I brought up personnel is because now he has to go out and make sure he has the guys that can execute that. Yeah. And if he does, it's been proven over time to be a really good defensive situation.
A reminder, they have the number 2 overall pick in the draft. Go ahead, RC.
Which is going to be an extremely important pick. You know, if you're a new head coach, you want to make sure you have your franchise guy at the quarterback position. And we've seen the new head coaches in positions where they have that guy succeed very early. Now, if you think about Dan Quinn, Marcus mentioned a leader of men. Yeah. That's exactly what he was in that Dallas organization, not being able to get some of the candidates they were waiting on, because this is extremely late in the process for a coach who we expected to have a job very early to finally get one.
For me, it's offensive coordinator, you know, and my mind immediately goes to Clint Kubiak, who is the son of Gary Kubiak, who is in San Francisco. A couple of reasons. One, when Dan Quinn was the head coach at Atlanta and they went on to run Kyle Shanahan from that tree, obviously a tremendous amount of success. Adam Peters, who's their new general manager, had just spent multiple years in San Francisco, so he's going to have a good background of understanding who Clint Kubiak is. He's called plays, I believe, 1 year in Minnesota. I just think, like, one of the things that is a shoo-in is his offensive coordinator, whoever it is going to be, will come from that tree because of the success he had in Atlanta and because of Adam Peters watching that type of scheme be so dominant in San Francisco. It would make no sense to hire somebody that's not from that McShanahan tree.
The final head coach hired by the Washington Commanders. Because ESPN has not given him great success, I would give him a C or C minus. But I do believe he was a better head coach when he was the Falcons. He did lead him to a Super Bowl, but he did blow a huge lead of 28-3. Did lead him to a Super Bowl, so I say he's a little better than what Stephen A. said. Now the Commanders' organization is a mess and has been a mess for a long time, though they did finally get rid of Dan Snyder as their Josh Harris. I also would have made the call to Barrett Bieniemy, former Chiefs offensive coordinator, but there has to be a reason he hasn't got the job anywhere else, as he's been wanting a job for a long time. The Kansas Jayhawks will play Houston. LJ Cryer averages 15.1. Kevin McCullough averages 19.8. Those are players to watch out for. Hunter Dickerson can step out and hit the big shot. DJ DeJuan Harrison has struggled for the Jayhawks. He needs to show up bigger. Houston is favored by 1.5, but the Jayhawks are leading. Um, 30-15. So starting out with the blowout, I told you the Jayhawks would win. Game time was at 3. Mizzou is losing to Vanderbilt again. Final score in that game. Missouri has no conference wins. We'll talk about that more on Sunday or Monday. Vanderbilt is ahead 38-29 and started the second half. Missouri is losing again to yet another team that hasn't won a game. Right now the score is 30-47, 47-30 at the half. It's Eli Manning versus Peyton Manning. Kansas beats Houston 78-65. Final yesterday. Houston took a 2-0 lead, but after that, they never took the lead back. 43-28 at halftime was the score. It was so bad that Houston outscored them in the second half, but still lost by 13. Hunter Dickerson led the Hawks with 20. Two players had 17, Kevin McCullough and Johnny Furphy from Australia. DeJuan Harris struggles again. He's got to find it sooner or later. If KU wants to be a national championship contender, that's what they're going to have to do. Final again, 78-65. Tomorrow, KU will have the Sunflower Showdown rival against Kansas State, who lost 4 in a row, including a loss yesterday to Oklahoma State. Kansas State had a really bad loss to Oklahoma State. Purdue and Wisconsin lined up today. Final score of that one was 75-69. Purdue, number 2, wins over number 6. Nebraska and Illinois will be tonight at 5:30. 9.5 is the line. And Arizona and Stanford, Arizona is 11. Stanford is 11-9. 17.5 is a line. That's Sam Vaughn Sports.